Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Art of the Beholder, a show dedicated to all things eclectic in the world of art. I'm your host, Novo, and today we're going to be talking about art and animation, focusing on cerebral sci-fi acid trip, Scavengers Reign. To hash things out, we're once again joined by the other hollow creature. That's right. That's Mr. Philip Church of philipchurch.com. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I did not realize I was so hollow.
We wanted to get you off the planet to do the show today.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I've
He's been marooned for days.
People have been trying to get me off planet for years. So, you know what? Kudos
Not
to you.
His
Kudos.
first rodeo.
And that is Scavengers Reign, like kings, like EIGN, not like overhead little.
He doesn't
little
like
tiddly
the
drop.
brag.
No, I'm just making sure that people have the right forethought of their head. I want them going into this prepared. This is going to be a good episode.
Good, heady, cerebral. My favorite kind of sci-fi, Philip.
This
My favorite
show
kind of sci-fi.
Slaps. I almost went ahead and used my four-letter word right off the bat. It's so hard to hold back with trying to explain how good the show is.
Oh, we only get one.
We're PG-13. Kind of Disney.
We're PG-13 now, so we only get one a show, guys.
Once you for
it's
the
like
millionth
Die
time in
Hard
your
movies.
life.
After a while, they could only afford one because
Yeah.
they wanted more seats. They wanted more people in those seats. I get it. So,
Yippee-ki-yay, mother humper.
why don't you hold that F word inside you?
Oh, I'm going to say
and
it.
while he's thinking for the perfect place to unleash it, let's tell the good people why. Why are we talking about Scavengers Reign today? Well, I'm going to sum it up with one sentence, guys, and that is this. This just may be some of the best science fiction we've had in years.
Survival. This show is fraught with so many emotions, the layers of just philosophy
There's
of at play.
A lot to it. That's
It's
why I said
so
cerebral.
Dense. It's insane how just 12 episodes, and it's only a 30-minute show at that. And yet they really did leave you with so much to ponder. And the fact that they did it with as spare of a cast as they did with how much of the sort of cast, if you will, just the environment, the planet, the different species and everything. Yeah, everything takes up so much space that I mean,
so
there
creative
are sequences.
Too,
yeah, there are sequences that are just captivating. That while you could have cut them and they would have had zero impact, you also were like, no, you leave that in. That's beautiful. I don't know what I just watched, but I loved it.
Loved every single minute. But before we get there, guys, you know what you need, and that is a little background. Scavengers Reign was created by Joseph Bennett and Charles Hotner. It was developed by HBO Max, or as Daddy Warner Brothers likes to call it now, Max.
Never calling it that.
Oh, I'm going to have to bleep that one out. Well, I'll bleep them all out. But
you can, but also that's
okay,
how much.
I'm giving you two this episode. You're getting two.
Okay,
You're getting
you
two.
Know what? That makes it for the Christmas present.
It premiered on October 19th, 2023. Ran for one season, at least for now. Wink. Consisted of 12 episodes, and at the time of this recording holds a rare perfect 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes and even won a Primetime Emmy. So, guys, there is a lot.
You can't argue with Rotten Tomatoes.
I know. Yeah.
Just don't.
Though you want to, God. So, guys, obviously there's a lot of juicy middle to get to, but before we do, we're going to take a little break. Stay with us.
Juicy.
Support for this show is brought to you by novel Till the Bitter Endemic. What if there was a happy ending to a pandemic? Perhaps an unexpected love story. After Daisy gets thrust into mandatory quarantine for an infection she can't explain, it's up to her to unravel the truth as to what's behind it and what she can ultimately do to escape it. But she can't do this alone, and that's where she finds not only herself, but a very special person that opens their heart for the betterment of their survival. Find out how in Till the Bitter Endemic. Available now on Amazon in all major formats.
Juicy.
And we are back to conquer the world, Philip. Now, before we get to that juicy middle, let's give the good people a little history. What was? I got to get rid of those ums. What was news to me when we were doing our homework for the show? This this show was based off a 2016 short film entitled Scavengers.
Yeah, they kind of made it like a pilot for this even.
And I didn't know that they had the vision. They had the foundation, we had the ground game, and now we got boots on the ground to make it a fully realized season with a fully realized narrative.
Well, technically more than one season, but so far just one.
So far just one. We'll get to there, guys. We want more, but the powers that be,
call your senators.
Daddy Warner Brothers.
Oh, okay.
Daddy Warner Brothers didn't get enough eyes on the prize. We didn't get enough eyeballs.
I'll go ahead and own a piece of that.
The streamies.
I lost it when it came out. I did not watch it when it was.
I did the same thing.
I heard from a friend how amazing it was, and I believed them and watched it, but it was too late.
I think in our defense, since we have a show dedicated to art appreciation, we had a few things on the docket.
We do stuff all the time, y'all. Plus, as you may know, but this could somehow be a secret, I have a child. Someone allowed me.
I don't think it's a secret.
I didn't think so.
Talk
but
about that cute little lad a lot on the show.
Yeah, no, I know. The little boogums is my favorite. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes I'll go what feels like days at a time without having an adult conversation, and then I get to turn around and I realize that I missed this, and I sit down and watch it. And there's that split second where I actually was like, "This is so beautiful. I would love to show Ellis." And then freaking
Scavengers Reign?
Yeah, just snips of it.
Oh my goodness. I'm not sure if he's ready.
No, again, of course you couldn't. No, he's too teen. That's what I'm saying. Is just there are parts that are so beautiful and they're just like, oh, this is so lovely. And then give it 5 minutes.
And then you see the hollow with his telepathic. Yeah.
Like, so yeah, no,
the animation.
I'm just saying that's the gamut. This show is not just one thing. It is beautiful. It is ponderous.
It is horror too.
It is horrifying.
It's science fiction.
Hence, I love it.
It's hard science fiction too. It is not grounded here on this Earth, planet Earth kind of science fiction. It is so otherworldly that honestly, something I don't feel like I have seen before ever.
The consulting budget was well spent because whatever kind of, I don't like ecologist isn't the right word, but whatever thing it is that whoever you contact to say, hey, I need help understanding what life would look like on an alien world, and to say, look at an entire ecosystem and make me an alien version.
And they came up with like 1,000,001 different things.
There are one-offs every other screen. There are so many one-offs things.
Oh my God, yes.
I remember thinking that. I was like, I don't care that they're not talking about that flower. I was like, all of this looks amazing, and the ones that need attention will get it because they try to kill you.
Well, you're talking about one of our discussion beats, and that is the idea of the fully realized world. This world was so well thought of, so well detailed that it felt very real. And that brings me to some of my first points. Is even though this was animation, I felt like it was science fiction that it felt more real.
It was just a documentary that got sent back in time or something.
Right. It felt more real than the live action contemporaries we see.
It genuinely felt like it had more care and love. If you told me that that's what the 7 years between the short film in 2016 and the show releasing was spent on research, I'd say, again, consulting well spent. Thank you for calling these people in, because the world, this realized world, is more than just a character to an extent. I mean, it does literally have characters that you could say are in the plot, but geez, the whole world and every living thing in it is intentional.
You said the key word, and that is plot. So we gotta talk. Right? Oh my God, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking of Pee-wee's. Oh man, that's why it's a voiceover actor. That was good. So all the talking chairs out there, yes, we said the magic word. Now, before we talk all things plot, narrative, characters, the stuff we love to talk about on the show, let's give a synopsis to the good people that may be on the fence, maybe haven't checked it out, but need to check it out. Guys, we need more eyeballs because we need a season 2. This is part of the show. Part of the show is not only a discussion, but also a ploy.
I'm not always here just to gush.
Yeah, guys,
we just happen to pick great
support Scavengers Reign so we get more of it.
Hashtag.
So for the good people,
do the
things. For the good people that don't know yet, let me give you a little synopsis. I'm looking at you, Riles.
Hit subscribe. Drop me a comment on
the series follows the survivors of a damaged interstellar cargo ship, the Demeter 227, marooned on an alien planet known as Vesta in search of rescue and eventual escape from the dangers of the planet, housing some of the most magnificent and scary creatures you could ever imagine.
And yeah, like I was going to say, the plants, though, just as much as the seemingly sentient.
Oh my
ones.
God, the craziest wildlife, flora, fauna you could ever imagine, challenging the very idea of what something alien can be. Things that truly have to be seen to believed. So that's our little synopsis. So guys, you know what that means from here on out. Spoiler time. Spoiler time. Okay. So you're going to hear a lot of
earmuffs,
spoilers.
Kiddos.
Earmuffs.
Here
Get it
come
on,
all 8
Riles.
of my F-bombs tonight, Nobo.
You only get one more, so you better save it.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. I upgraded myself.
Now I got to bleep that one out.
You know,
we still got to cuss, guys.
I still
Come on.
very much appreciate the fact that they kept the cast so sparing. I think that really drove the sense of just it really kept the tension going, this sense of desperation, the isolation that everyone feels.
And it was weighted well too, because of the character types,
yes.
and because we kept jumping, Game of Thrones style, you never got bored either. So let's dive into the story, the narrative style, and of course what that brings, plotting. So the main story consisted of 3 interlocking smaller stories that slowly converged, and that centered on Sam and Ursula, Ozzy and her robot Levi, and Cayman, and is what is later known as the Hollow, or just Hollow, which is one of the most unique creatures. The Frogs McGee. I don't know. It's like a cross between what is it? It's a cross between
it's a psychic gas frog.
It's like a platypus with a giant. It doesn't without the beak, and I don't know. You thought frog when you saw it?
Oh yeah,
really? I don't know. I feel like someone on Reddit. I remember reading someone that was like, "Oh, it's a cross between this and this," and I was like, "God, that's correct. That is the one." But I can't for the life of me remember what it was. But these stories were so perfect and captivating, and it drove the momentum of the narrative forward. And you felt like it was a science fiction slice of life. Like you felt like you were there with them. It felt so
riveting.
real.
Yeah, it was riveting. Yeah. I want to give very clear appreciation as well for the pacing.
Oh my God.
The striking that wonderful, delicate balance of having just spare enough details to be building as rich of a world as they are, while having these characters go through these very complicated life or death scenarios pretty much every other minute, as well as learning things about their backgrounds and watching interpersonal things occur. They pack in so much stuff thanks to the pacing of how everything, like in the braid or the weave or whatever you want to call it, something is always taking the spotlight intentionally, and it is so well done thanks to these 3 like main sort of plot lines, and the fact that it's not some burgeoning like dozens of people with extras coming on and off like other things. I think that's what makes it feel so much more hard sci-fi realistic compared to these big budget live action shows that you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. And it makes it more not only relatable, but familial, and the things we talk about on other shows a lot. And we first meet, so at the very beginning, we first meet Sam, played by Bob Stevenson, and Ursula, played by Sunita Mani. And
Sam's the captain.
Yes. And one of his mates, kind of a thing. I think she was actually.
I think part of kind of botanist or something. At first?
Right. I think part of the reason they seem so comfortable with the world, and there's little things in the story, the visual storytelling, like her making like a makeshift calendar, doing like the 4 crosses and a slash through it. So you know that a bunch of time has gone by. Yeah, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain. I don't know if it was days or hours or weeks. It doesn't seem like it was years, right? It didn't seem like they were on there for years, but weeks weeks maybe is more realistic to me. Probably not months.
To an extent, they did do a good job of showing literally the day that the incident leading to the crash happened.
Right.
And so you could legitimately go, okay, well, these two people have beards and longer hair. So I don't think it was more than a few weeks or months, in which at the same time, that did bring up one of my biggest points was there are things that they do to these god-awful
right. They interact with the wildlife.
Normal. They act like, haha, here's my like blow up inflatable thing whose ass juices I'm going to breathe in for a minute. And I'm like, this is, ma'am, this is a Tuesday.
Or the squid creature they put on their face to be used
to breathe.
As a
scuba gear, basically.
Exactly.
Which again, I love it. But yeah, their familiarity with it, I was like, you guys, have you not lived here for years at this point? Like, how do you know that?
Well, and you bring up a good point with Ursula. So we I don't know if she's a botanist, but she's a scientist, right? And it's clear that she studied these kind of things somewhere at some time, because she's so comfortable interacting with so much of the world that is, and like, guys, we cannot stress enough, if you can possibly think it, they somehow put it in the show. Like, every tiny little thing, to the tiniest creature to the biggest sprawling behemoth of a creature, is in this show. But the craziest part is it makes sense in the world of the show. Like, this flying creature has, is a part of the ecosystem this way, and this leads to this, and this leads to that. It's the circle of life, like the Lion King. So they thought it was so well thought out, so well detailed, that I almost feel like, it's crazy to me that these two men created the show and probably thought of a lot of these ideas up. It feels like a team of writers, dozens, but it probably was just the brainchild of people that clearly love science fiction, and they wanted to make something that has really never been done before. I feel like there's a lot of, and that kind of brings us to Ozzy and Levi, because I feel like of all the characters and all the plotting,
this one's important. There's a lot of weight on this,
right? All of the plotting and all the things that I felt like were, oh my god, because obviously we have the creatures and we have the flora and the fauna, but we also have robotics, artificial intelligence. Ozzy is played by Wunmi Musaku, and Levi, her robot companion, is played by Alia Shawkat,
AKA maybe Funke
from Arrested Development. That's right. I was thinking the same thing.
I didn't know. I'm glad I didn't look that up till afterwards, because I
read that, I was like, oh, hey.
I know. My first thought was like, wait, is that? And I was like, yep, that's maybe.
She also plays another character. She plays Fiona.
Right?
Yeah, Cayman's estranged wife, Fiona. But I think of all the characters, I keep, honestly, Philip, going back to is Levi, because it started as an AI robot, and by the end of the show, it's acquiring sentience. But then it acquires.
They went full 2001,
right? I couldn't agree more, because it went from robotics to sentience, but then it became what I can only describe as something we've never seen in science fiction, which is a third version of what is the third thing when something organic and inorganic meld and create a hybrid that we've never seen before. And I feel like that's the closest thing we have with Levi.
Because that's essentially just, it won't be, once again, we already said we're in spoiler territory.
I gave the warning, Riles.
Essentially, everything on this planet is incredibly aggressive, whether it's parasitic or predatory. And essentially what I have to assume it was outright a fungus is making its way through this android, robot, whatever, making it through their circuits. And numerous times, Ozzy is noticing, like, Levi, why are you doing this weird thing? Open up your hatch. And she keeps looking at him going like,
pain.
Meh. Yeah, she's talking about, I think I feel something. She's like, what do you mean? She's like an actual, like just describing memories and pain. And she's like, that's not right. I liked the way that those interplayed. It really doesn't sound like that far flung of a thing of all things too, for it to be something like mycelium or some kind of like mega mycelia, something that would.
It wasn't over explained, in other words, right?
Yeah, I like that. I like that it was plausible on its just like fiction. On just like the raw information given, especially the way that they delivered it was so.
And that brings us to the closest thing I would say we have to a villain in the show, or villains, is Cayman in his the creature he essentially gets. enslaved by the Hollow. Cayman is played by Ted Travelstead. And but I think this is the beauty of the show and the plotting is it's easy to call him the villain for some of the things, but when you're learning some of the backstory, he had good intentions. I think he was trying to reroute them so that they wouldn't lose the equipment. And of course, even though Sam told him, don't do that by doing.
Yeah, not only did the captain say no, but yeah, it sounded
If you change course, that's against a direct order.
It seems
and that's
selfish
where
for me.
Right. That's where he still became kind of the villain. And of course, the Hollow is the the honestly scariest creature in the whole show because he or she not only has telepathic abilities, he has telekinesis. He is so powerful in this world. I couldn't imagine dealing with something like that as a human. And I love that. I love that on the surface, the plotting of these three narratives is actually quite simple. They're marooned. They're trying to figure out how to escape. That's the bottom line. But as we follow each of them and we learn their backstories and we learn why they're here, my God, the characters become so rich and three-dimensional, and that's why you feel like they're more real than the live action material that we get these days.
Yeah, I think because they gave everybody enough time to develop, and thanks to that, both good writing and good pacing, that they gave you exactly what you needed in such a concise way. And all of this is also just to nod. I don't think we've really, which it's, of course, why would we try to describe a television screen with just our words? But still, I do think, at least for the sake of trying to explain this specific cartoon, because it's not like we're talking about real people here.
I will animate it a little on YouTube, probably in a trailer.
Fair enough. That's true. Some of this will have visual component, but for those who are audio only, podcasters, it's got an Adult Swim sort of feel to it. It at certain times it almost looks like maybe like a Venture Brothers or something, but definitely not as cartoony, like far more actual serious, because this is a serious show. It's not that there isn't anything with any humor to it necessarily, but for the most part, it is pretty fraught.
There's levity.
Yes, thank you.
But it's not, but it is
But the art style is so important because of how much of this is taking in an entire ecosystem with your eyeballs. So us sitting here gushing is only going to do so much, but I really do need to stress that they thought of so many different interesting angles to where things make enough sense to our brains when you look at it, but after you get that initial like, oh, that thing's doing this, you're like, what? But where did that come from?
Where did that tentacle come from?
Right? How was it actually operating that way, or just how it who would have thought to make it operate that way? It was just so much of what I thought over and over and over again, just observing the things that are sometimes just again in the foreground, the side of this thing. Like not everything becomes its own fully fleshed out character, but there is so much more than enough to where they could have done that with more of the creatures. But yeah, like playing up the Hollow and Cayman's thing, specifically as Cayman was flawed, the Hollow had its own interesting arc of becoming sort of superior, but kind of proving itself to also be.
It became fat.
Kind of, chaotic evil of just like selfish and just greedy.
And he became this gluttonous version of himself. He couldn't get enough.
And of course, as its body got larger, therefore its head and its psychic powers got larger, and it was genuinely threatening.
And it wanted more and more and more, though.
Yeah, so
it had no quench to its
without
appetite.
A single line of dialogue for this alien creature that wouldn't speak English, even if it had some kind of speech, but doesn't even speak at all. It was menacing. There are times when you see it and you really are just like, oh no. Oh no.
I feel like he stole the show a lot of the time. Anytime he came on into the story, I was like, it's about to go down.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it was used very specifically, especially because as a non-human character that we weren't as invested in, it didn't even have that much. I mean, we saw it when it was small. Like we watched it get big and everything, so there wasn't much to know or care about. So
we saw its brethren too, the other similar creatures, because he was clearly kind of either the boss or he was the bully. Like you could tell that, at the very first episode, he demanded. He was like, "No, that's mine." To another similar Hollow.
And then especially, and then once it saw like the violence that Cayman was capable of to sort of feed it and work in service of it, that was interesting. And I do wonder how much that affected it, because before that, it had only really been, hunting seemingly smaller things. And I do wonder if that's another sort of interesting take of something they learned from any of their, I don't know, again, like evolutionary ecology stuff that they like, whatever they looked up to make these wonderful alien creatures, if that was something that they stumbled upon and just kind of buried in there, just like with that, some of that behavior, it was it's just brilliantly done. I loved that character.
One thing that really stuck out to me, and I want to hear some about your favorite creatures as well along the way, either on the horrific side or the strangely beautiful. It was very dualistic that we see in a lot of the art pieces that we cover, and something that really I feel like really stuck with me was watching the life cycle of that tiny little blue creature that Ursula finds in like the
in that like flower thing when they're in that cramped,
and you essentially see an entire life cycle of this creature, and it was so poetic.
That gave me weird Adventure Time vibes.
Yeah, like it's captivating, and it was only there for a few seconds.
I mean, it was so important that even that it was a plot point for the character. Even they were like, I had to stop and watch that. And the other, like Sam was like, where were you? Like Sam was pissed and kind of justifiably, but as I genuinely was sitting there being like, girl, same.
And yeah, just seeing like, especially how, again, going back to how much time has actually taken place, because, with Ozzy and Levi, they were like making crops and stuff. Like they had enough time to like make their own vegetation.
Right. Yeah, they got to realize, I mean, I think that's, once you really do understand, like once you take this job, I think it's somewhere in your head, you're told that, hey, the second you don't know that you have stable food, you have to start like settling. You have to start like cropping or growing or something. So, I mean, that does kind of make sense because they'd been there for weeks at that point.
Or when Levi shows Ozzy and vis-a-vis the audience her like little oasis of, in that big
here at night.
White tower. Yeah. And or it's not a tower, it's like a cylinder thing that they somehow stumble upon, but Levi has actually been coming there regularly to essentially create her own little ecosystem. And I just felt and again, it just felt strangely beautiful. I feel like this is where it definitely transcends into more than just animation or more than storytelling. It very much becomes its own kind of piece of art and a masterpiece in a lot of ways, because it just transcends so many of these basic ideas we've seen in other science fiction or other animation, and it clearly has been inspired by things. I feel like on one hand the animation is very simple, but then sometimes when we see like these strange metamorphoses and metamorphosis from creatures, and it always makes me think of Akira's Third Act, and when we see Tetsuo turn into that giant mass of a blob and stuff. And I remember when any of the creatures or the flora or fauna would get like infected with something, or it would become parasitic or whatever the thing was. And I just got those vibes again, where I was like, oh God. And that's where it kind of would bleed into a little bit of that science fiction horror as well. But it still made it so captivating, because you're thinking of like, what new creature are we going to see next? And what new form of wildlife or flora or fauna are we going to see next? Like surely they have tapped this well of creativity, and they kept surprising us over and over again.
It genuinely didn't stop the whole time.
Right.
I think another thing that was done so well that I really didn't see coming, I think at all, was the pretty much not exactly showdown, but the
Levi and the Hollow?
the potentially inevitable sort of collision.
It was like a climax
of Hollow and Levi,
because the stories colliding.
The way that the stories played out, you kind of almost didn't realize it until that moment where you're like, yeah, you guys have been painted into kind of like, I don't know, almost diametric opposites. Like Levi becoming like a hybrid sentience that is essentially part like of the planet itself now, yet maintaining its old consciousness is cool. And then you've got the consciousness absorbing / like telekinetic, just destructive, seemingly sort of evil force on the opposite end of that. I don't know, just way to set that up. I genuinely did not see that coming. That lead up, the 2001 homage was really cool. And then the rainbow blasting all
it was a show. It was a showdown though. It was like
God, that was epic. Just thinking about it, it's just exciting.
Yes,
it's genuinely, that was exciting as hell.
And you really thought like, we had a chance too. Like if we can beat the Hollow, we can get off this planet, you know?
That was giving Super Metroid, by the way.
Yes.
The friend coming in at the last minute, rainbow beam blasting the baddie. Like, come on.
Well, I think we all thought we had a chance when we met Chris, Terrence, and Barry.
Kind of.
You know, but then when we got to know those characters, we're like, okay, these are essentially like
30 seconds.
Like pirates.
These,
you know,
sociopaths?
Marauders.
Who the hell are these people? Like
you know, but I feel like it gave a little spice to some of these plot lines because you didn't know what was going to happen. Clearly, this was going to be this. They were setting up season 2 and 3 and so on of the story.
Yeah,
but though. I still want to have hope that I think enough of people like us, they're not going to do whole podcasts about it, but
you never know.
I think they'll get enough eyes, they'll get enough metrics to be like, okay, I think we should give this another chance, because maybe it just great art takes a lot of time to acquire an audience, right? We always talk about that on our shows, and I personally think this is not the last we'll see of it as of today, as the time of this recording. It has not been picked up for a season 2. It's technically canceled.
Yeah, they couldn't even
canceled
sort of
category.
Netflix.
But in a weird way, I feel like the story, and I think this is smart writing by the team, I feel like it still had kind of a conclusionary end, even though there is a few things that, you know, we do see Chris, played by Pollyanna McIntosh, of the 3 marauders or pirates, or however you want to look at them, that come into the plotting near the end of the season. You know, even I feel like that there's some sort of conclusion to her story versus obviously Sam passes, Ursula moves on, Ozzy moves on, and of course even Levi,
even the old lady.
Yeah.
I actually genuinely liked that they kind of showed that she was still going. That she, whatever, like when they sort of had to fight her off a little bit, that wasn't the end of her, because otherwise.
But she was infected with the parasite too, though, right?
No, exactly. She was the same one that Sam got, but the fact that Sam still retained enough of himself up to a certain point, and then there's the fact that you saw Masha tending to John's grave. So I think that, of course, that parasite had a hold on her and did things to her, but it was hard to hold that against her. I think that even that scripting out of those things of just. I like that they didn't waste time. They got right to it. Like, okay, Sam is different, and that it made perfect sense of him trying to sort of fight it, come to terms with it. All this, the way that they wrote that out was masterful.
And when we saw the fully formed version of that parasite, like when you saw it connected to John, you're like, dear God Almighty, you know. And this is where some of these creature designs are. A very Metroid. Very Metroid.
That one was very Metroid. That definitely reminds me of, wasn't it like Fantoon or something, like in the old ghost ship?
Yes, with the that's exactly right. My God, he's
told you.
He's getting a 10 out of 10.
I've told you many a time.
He's getting a 10 out of 10 feedback from us today.
There was enough hangover cliffhanger.
Just there was enough
cliffhanger stuff at the end there.
Right, there's enough room
where they clearly were gearing up
story.
For it. Yeah, but it also, as far as that first arc goes, that is cohesive, and that's enough. Holy crap, was that a story?
Right. They didn't get off the planet, but they found they developed their own community, you know, around the ship. And things like
and
that.
there's still plenty of hope. The fact that like these scavengers found them, and now more people are awake, more heads, blah blah blah. So yeah, and then even just the other thing about whatever masked society found.
Yes,
Chris.
That's true. Exactly. And there's still distress calls out there.
And one of Levi's little weird babies, also got up with her. I didn't think we knew that Levi was doing that at that point. There were so many cool things that they led in there. So, yeah, I genuinely hope that with enough time, the metrics will speak for themselves. And there's no doubt in my mind that people this creative, people who already just spent 7 years making something that amazing, they're not going to stop. They're not going to see this as some kind of failure and give up on their art dreams. No, those creators are going to keep creating. So it's also important that we keep looking out for these people just because we already let this gem slip by us and can hope for more. But whatever else they do, we know it's going to rock. So,
what if they did a live action science fiction
don't do that.
Story?
Don't do that.
You think they should stick to the animation?
I'm so sick of CGI. I genuinely preferred that it was cartoon. True. I liked that this was a really just well-made cartoon that had a unique art style that was engaging and vivid and beautiful.
I mean, cartoon entails, Bugs Bunny and stuff. I feel like there's cartoons and there's animation. Animation's more
I guess that's true.
More adult.
There is an undercurrent to the word cartoon is something like sort of juvenile comes across, but
or just made for children. Yeah. But this was not made for children. Don't show your son.
Sophomore,
is what I'm saying. Sophomore. Don't show your son anytime soon. Maybe
you can see like a still of it and just
16,
lie.
15.
Yeah, when he's a lot older
14,
than he is now.
Yeah,
give it a while. Give it a good while. But even it took me a couple of episodes for the theme song to really grow, get
and
its
you see
nails
a lot of hints of it.
You
see little hints of it throughout the piece too.
It was really good. So that was actually another thing I noticed is I did not skip the intros.
Yes, music was done by Nicholas Snyder, and I think it was the kind of scoring where it was subtle but appropriate. I never felt like it took over the scenes or anything like that. A lot of that ambience,
and it was
atmospheric.
It was sort of alien and esoteric enough to very much match. I liked that,
yes.
But it also never felt like they were trying too hard at all. They really nailed it.
Overpowering.
They really found that foreign but just familiar enough sort of niche and filled it with those emotions that go along with fighting for your survival every damn day. So you're, sometimes there's moments of serenity and then there's, oh shit, I'm being eaten again. Like here comes some weird cloud of birds that pisses acid rain on me, whatever it is.
There was
there's just
crystal
fear
rain,
and terror. Yeah, there was just
hard metal rain at one point.
God, there's just intense stuff. So I liked that the somehow the music fit. These insane
it's always the
visuals.
Glue. Right? It's always music is the glue. Music editing and pacing is such the glue to these pieces that is so invisible to the average eye. And it doesn't probably get enough love.
The pacing in this one, genuinely. I'm so glad you brought that word up again because this is a masterclass in pacing. This show is beautiful.
Right, and I like how the story beats were given to you too. It was piecewise, and it was broken up to us living in the present with these characters, but then getting the flashbacks, and of course, so many great moments of storytelling is just through Cayman and just these visions he would see with Fiona, which was, of course, controlled by the Hollow, but we learned so much. And again, just the Akira inspirations, like when the Hollow opened up, its body was able to literally consume
absorb
Cayman.
Yeah,
little things like that. That's where the animation. That's where I was like, this animation is deceptive. It's not simple because you just look at the character faces and stuff.
There were a couple moments where I had to ask myself, is this somehow all CG?
Well, I think it was a combination, right? It had to be.
Some of it could have been. Some of the
part hand, part
perhaps,
CG.
But
yeah,
most of it gave me animation vibes. So I don't mean that in any kind of bad way at all. Of wondering if some of it was just because the art style was so unique and just it was interesting to think that's that's an interesting approach, that kind of that angle or the way it was looked at. It was clearly storyboarded as if it was going to be real. And I think the choice of having gone with that kind of animation is what made me wonder about that. But yeah, the art style was very engaging because you already don't know what's going to move, what to expect from anything anyways.
Right. Yeah.
And so then especially when it did stuff like ratchet up the action, and whether there's a hunt or some kind of cat and mouse, a defensive thing, a fight, and things really got moving, it was so good at adapting to that too, of once again just matching the pace of anything else that was needed to maintain the tone for that emotion or part of the scene. It was so good.
It was a perfect layering of things that it wasn't just the sum of its parts. When you actually put it all together, it was such a cohesive whole of ideas and a team bringing a vision to life. And that, of course, always brings us to us, the audience, and kind of how a story like this and how the story was told impacts us, emotionally, and what we get out of it and things of that nature.
It gave me a very existential vibe or feeling, in that looking at the scale of almost anything, whether it was that life cycle of that one flower alien thing, or something much larger, or the parasitic nature of things like that, of just taking a step back and kind of feeling small, not in a bad way, but just about thinking about everything, and just like circumstances of just how things came to be in our way that it did like this. And then, the actual survival aspects of the story were somehow so opposite of that. You almost can't be more grounded and have more human moments when your literal human life is on the line seemingly once a day. I liked that, even about the way that you would find the characters stopping to appreciate something, like ponder something, because you were doing the exact same thing, and you didn't really question it. It never felt in any way forced, or like a weird moment to be like, oh, they're doing that now. No, everything that the character stopped and paid attention to was worth the attention, for some reason or another, and I loved that it really had that gripping, like, aspect to it, and yet also just sky high, like this weird bird's eye view on just a very different level.
The piece was, I couldn't agree more. The piece to me was very existential, and it made me think of my own humanity through the piece a lot of the time. And of course, with science fiction, it did an incredible job that a lot of science fiction does, in that it made me feel both minuscule, to your point. We are we merely live on a pale blue dot.
We are one of a species that only lives in a part of one thing, and one thing inside of one thing. Like, bleh.
But at the same time, it made me feel very special as a human, that we get to experience these things. We get to experience the otherworldly aspects that we already get in our life and on our planet, and the
that
things
we are
that
free
just feel
from the terror of gigantic frog telekinesis douchebags.
But what feels alien to us
Yeah.
is my point. The things that feel alien to us and otherworldly, and I feel like they captured that so well, and it makes you think of your own life, one, but also not to take things for granted, because you just don't know sometimes what alien worlds hold.
What strange new thing is in store for you? Yeah.
With that being said, I think we need to tie a bow on this bee and tell the good people why. Why watch, study, and support the piece that is Scavengers Reign.
To piggyback and borrow from something you said just a little bit ago, this was more than just a sum of parts. This was a holistic show. This was a holistic just process. It's any one word technically doesn't do it justice, other than technically you call an experience, almost feel kind of pretentious calling it an experience.
But it is an experience.
But
it was
exactly,
challenging. It was kind of hard to watch at first, but then it felt rewarding, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't scared to go to some, pretty like interesting and like realistic and yet dark, borderline primordial sort of places. So swung for the fences. I think they knew that they had a hit, and they made it exactly how they wanted to. And
they had a vision.
Yeah, and that just following that vision was able to deliver such a visually unique in so many ways. Again, to try to urge you to observe this entire alien ecological system for yourself is feels Herculean, but I swear, once you watch it, you'll be like, okay, I see what those guys were talking about, why he wouldn't shut up about it. So visuals, the music, these stories, that chef's kiss pacing, just masterclass all around. And it's super unique in the ways that it approached this look at life and death. This not exactly nihilisticness, but I don't know. There's just, I guess, existential comes back to mind. This way of thinking about your life and your experiences with it. It's thought-provoking, to put it lightly.
So, guys, you heard the man. Support this piece. Support Scavengers Reign.
Give it the saves and the watches.
And maybe, just maybe, we'll get more of it.
They've got it primed to go.
But until then, I want to say thank you guys so much for listening. There you have it. Scavengers Reign, Season 1, from top to bottom. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank my guest, Mr. Philip Church, philipchurch.com. But before we go, we got a little more for you, a little icing on the cake, a little cherry on top with what we call the gem of the week.
This stuff right here?
But before we talk gems, guys, a word from the sponsors.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is our go-to tool for remote podcast recordings. What's great is that you can record separate audio and video tracks, and it's all backed up on a secured cloud, so you never lose your hard work. Even better, it's easy to use, and there's nothing to download. So go to Zencastr.com, Zencastr.com, and use promo code Art of the Beholder to get 30% off your first 3 months with a pro account.
Now back to the gems. I got 2. Completely off topic.
Good, because I have 2.
You have 2? Perfect. Okay. 2 sides of the same coin, baby. Mine are completely off topic. I'm going to be short and sweet because I'm curious.
If you somehow take one of mine again.
Well, a little overlap. We can overlap like, what was it?
That's
Nosferatu?
True. I think so. More than once, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Happens all the time. Been watching The White Lotus, Season 3. Okay. It is excellent. I love this kind of a anthology show, and I love that we're giving characters just a playground to be fun and weird and colorful 3-dimensional characters, and that is a lot of The White Lotus. And a game me and Del Rio have been playing, Split Fiction.
Aha, a good one.
Yes. I for you good people listening that maybe are game developers, 1, come on the show. We want to interview you. And 2, I think we need more of these. We need more of Split Fiction and It Takes Two and A Way Home or A Way Out or whatever. The first
Bring
one.
co-op back.
Yeah, I just
local co-op.
Local co-op, exactly.
Those were the best days of my childhood.
Oh my God, GoldenEye? Come on, what was more fun?
Many things.
What was more fun than
Proximity
Mines?
And such, like.
Oh yes. Oh, okay. So I'm preaching to the choir, but if you want that right now, guys, check out Split Fiction.
I want to make sure. I don't think I have mentioned.
So we didn't overlap.
No, we did not overlap. Luckily, I don't know have I mentioned Natural Six, the podcast. I feel like I did.
Tell me about it.
It's a D&D podcast. It's got
you have
some
yep.
Okay, it's a British video
but
game.
Okay. Plug it again.
I wanted to make sure.
Rules.
I
plug it.
I didn't realize how in its infancy it kind of was. Not that I found it at the very beginning, but I have already caught up to it coming out, and of course they have like a Patreon and whatnot. So it's just it's very fun. I like that it's a pretty good actual play D&D with just fun actors. But then I definitely am excited to mention that
like Geralt and right?
Like pretty much. Geralt of Rivia, Doug Cockle is the Dragonborn druid named Kelnis.
Of course.
In this show. I could tell you a lot about the show at this point. But the other thing was the Resident Evil 4 remake. Finally got it. I saw it on sale.
You're late to the party.
Again, I shop the sales these days,
man. I bought
it
day one.
I got to be
it was great, wasn't it?
It's amazing. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So Go
ahead and gush.
That they just rebuilt it from scratch with so much love that they knew that it was already a beloved. Like we don't need to do too much. Let's just make it freaking beautiful. A few more guns, just enough sort of changes to the exact formula, but still at the same time, if you just jot them both down, Quick Notes version, it's going to be identical. It's what you wanted with some extra.
Guys, if you like that, you can always check us out at novadayproductions.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe. You know what to do. You can follow us at _Nova_day and at AOTB podcast and at AOTB.podcast. One has a dot, one doesn't. And if you want to get a hold of Mr. Philip Church, hire him for his services, tell him how to do that.
Website, it's my name, philipchurch.com. Philip has 1L in it. It's got my demos. It has some of the reviews of the audiobooks that I have done. It's everything you need. I think it has a contact form. It does. It definitely does. That's right. People have used it. People use it. They use it all the time. Stop asking me about the thing. Yes, that's my website, philipchurch.com.
Guys, check it out. And if you'd like to sponsor a little love child here or be on the show, you can always reach out to us at novadayproductions@gmail.com. So until next time,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Be good to each other. And as always, good luck and Godspeed. We'll see you in the next one. But until then, we love you.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Novo Day Productions. Created by Novo Day and Theodore T. Buckingham. Written, directed, produced, and edited by Novo Day and the NDP Collective. Starring Philip Church of philipchurch.com. That's Philip with 1L. Alexandra Parsons of alexandraparsons.com. ALEXANDRA-PARSONS.com. With special contributions by Theodore T. Buckingham. Music by A Company, Instagram handle A_CO_music_. Logo design by Tom Justice of thejusticecompany.com, JESTUS. Thank you again for listening. All rights reserved. The best way to say thank you and to support us is by donating to the cause. In doing so, you'll be able to help us help fellow artists, creatives, and colleagues, promoting their work, the community as a whole, and why we got into this line of work to begin with, to not only make art, but also shine a light on our peers and the gems of the world. For all the hidden ones and the not so hidden that make life worth living. Because if we can make things even a little bit better, it'll all be worth it. But we can't do this without you. So please, donate today. And remember, even a little goes a long way to build new bridges, new worlds, and new opportunities. Link and details on how can be found in the show notes below. Because together, we can do anything.
Juicy.